Good morning, and thank you all for coming, and thank you to Senate Insurance Committee Chairman Kirk Talbot and House Insurance Committee Chairman Mike Huval. I appreciate them joining me here today. And as you know, we're currently in the midst of an insurance crisis, largely as a result of hurricane activity in our state the past couple of years, with the exception of last year, but also as a result of the impact of the situation, the crisis, so-called man-made crisis in Florida over the past decade or so. So today we're going to talk about success we've had in our state in addressing our crisis and what we're planning to do in the upcoming session jointly as a team, if you will, of myself and the two chairmen, as we have been for the entire time that they've been leading their insurance committees in the legislative process. Most recently, we addressed the crisis during a special session that the governor and the legislative leadership, Chairman Zarang of the Appropriations Committee, Senator Bodie White of the Finance Committee, along with Speaker Schexnayder and President Cortez and Governor John Bell Edwards, pulled together a almost virtually unanimous support for an incentive program that is now about ready to begin having its effect, in that we are next week planning to distribute the $42 million that has been approved by the Joint Legislative Budget Committee for distribution. The incentive program we instituted after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita devastated the insurance markets in the aftermath of the devastating hurricanes of Katrina and Rita. The insurance market successfully was brought back through the incentive program that sparked an incredible recovery. Homeowners insurance in Louisiana was affordable and available for nearly 15 years, until an unprecedented combination of back-to-back catastrophic hurricane seasons and a legal environment that led to a greater crisis in Florida than in the Florida insurance market, as well as global reinsurance shortage that all hit us at the same time, which paralyzed the industry and led to the failure of non-insurance companies doing business in our state. The first step in rebuilding our recovery is well underway. You've seen the news. Our state leaders pulled together in February to fund the Insure Louisiana Incentive Program, which has already received 8 approved applications from insurers for $42 million in grants. To earn that money, these insurers must write a total of nearly $170 million in new premium, at least half of which will be written in South Louisiana. I anticipate we will see 40,000 policies come out of Citizens by the end of the program's first year, and 50,000 additional new policies written during that time. Chairman Talbot will elaborate on our plans for this program in a little bit. Now let me talk about why we've invited you here today. We're here to share with the public our package of proposed solutions for the long-term issues Louisiana is facing in the property insurance market. This package, which is centered around legal reform and the Fortify Homes Roof Grant Program, is the most ambitious reform we've attempted to achieve in my 17 years as Insurance Commissioner. Let's get started. We'll be happy to take questions at the end of the conference. Florida has long been one of the least profitable markets for property insurers in the country. Most of the insurance companies that failed over the past 2 years were either based in Florida or wrote the bulk of their policies in Florida. The state's poor legal environment for insurers drove insurance companies to safe harbor in Louisiana and other coastal states, and we benefited from those companies' participation in our market until the recent string of events I mentioned earlier. In a recent special session, Florida's legislature overhauled its legal environment to make its market more attractive to insurers and less attractive to the bad actors that took advantage of Florida's homeowners to file frivolous lawsuits. Because of these recent changes in Florida, I expect those bad actors to target Louisiana homeowners next. In fact, we're already seeing it. I had to issue a cease and desist order against a law firm, the first time I or any insurance commissioner in Louisiana has ever done that. By the way, that firm, based out of Texas, was working with a roofing contractor to fraudulently represent what appears to be several hundred of homeowners in claims against insurance companies. These actions drove up rates and make insurance companies hesitant to do business in our state, not to mention the pain that the unrepresented, though homeowners who thought they were getting coverage from through this law firm were indeed not appropriately represented. And it's not just I that has taken exception to that activity. The courts, federal courts in Southwest Louisiana and in the southeast corner of our state have taken that law firm and that cabal, if you will, to task significantly in recent days. Last year, we successfully passed a package of legislation that was clearly aimed at protecting consumers from insurance companies in the claims process. This year, we're addressing a different problem, and I think Louisianians get it. They see the rate increases and the lack of policy options in the market. We need insurance companies to come back to Louisiana, and this is the best way to get it done. While we are not copying what Florida did legislatively, we are taking the lead in an effort to introduce several legal and claims process reforms that should strengthen our market for the long term. The bill, which will be introduced by Chairman Huvall, would establish timeframes for insurers to follow in acknowledging receipt of a claim, begin adjusting a claim, and requesting the specific information they need from the policyholder to determine satisfactory proof of loss. Insurers would be allowed to require a sworn proof of loss statement from the policyholder to establish such proof of loss. The bill also adds a 2-year statute of limitations for policyholders to seek penalties and attorney's fees for untimely payment of claims. Let me be clear to both policyholders and insurers. My office will continue to work with policyholders who have trouble getting insurers to pay what they owe, and we will come down heavily on any insurer that is not meeting the terms of their policies. I issued hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines against insurers for failing to live up to their end of the deal during the claims process following Hurricane Laura, and the LDI is continuing to investigate abusive claims processes and practices in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. In addition to Chairman Huvall's bill, we're also proposing several other pieces of legislation that should improve our legal environment. Louisiana Citizens is held to the same bad faith timelines and penalties as any other insurer, but Citizens is not like any other insurer. Bad faith penalties exist to provide a negative incentive for private, profit-driven insurers. As the state-backed insurer of last resort, Citizens is not motivated by income or by the threat of paying bad faith penalties. If Citizens is ordered to pay bad faith penalties in excess of what it can afford, it would just assess all policyholders in the state. For these reasons, we are proposing legislation that will put Citizens in line with the Louisiana Insurance Guarantee Association and immunize it from bad faith penalties. We're also proposing legislation that would prohibit property insurance policyholders from assigning their benefits to third parties like roofing contractors without their company's approval. Assignment of benefits has been used by bad actors to commit insurance fraud. An example of this is the law firm I mentioned earlier, which developed a scheme that tricked policyholders into signing over the right to negotiate with an insurer on their behalf without the policyholder's knowledge. Other legislation we are proposing this session includes a bill that addresses an issue in which some insurance companies have attempted to prohibit policyholders from hiring a public adjuster for a second opinion as to the extent of the damage and the estimated costs necessary to cover their repairs. This bill will disallow insurers from including such clauses prohibiting the use of public adjusters in their policies. The final bill in our package I'd like to mention today addresses the appraisal process. The appraisal process is an important tool policyholders can use to work with insurance companies to determine the amount of a loss when a dispute regarding the amount of the loss arises. not coverage, but the amount in dispute is subject to appraisal. Our current process needs a clearer and fairer framework. Our bill outlines the qualifications and duties for appraisers and umpires, something needed as well, and prohibits one-sided communication between the umpire and any one party without giving the other party an opportunity to participate, and other reforms as well. With that said, I'll turn it over to Chairman Talbot to talk about some of his proposals for the upcoming session. Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Good morning. Like the Commissioner mentioned, the incentive program has been very successful, and I do want to thank Governor Edwards and Speaker Sexsnyder and President Cortez for their cooperation in that special session. Everything went smoothly, the timing was right, and everything went as planned, and I think that's going to help in a big way. The program has been more successful than we've anticipated. It's my understanding that after Katrina, they the incentive program that Governor Blanco championed kind of struggled to give away or to incentivize with $29 million. It seems like we blew through the first $42 million right out of the gate, with 8 insurers requesting actually $20 million more, I think $62 million than was allocated. So we will be asking the legislature for that extra $20 million in the regular session. I think Chairman Huvall has that bill to do that. That should translate into, if all that money gets used, that's going to translate into about $250 million of premium written in Louisiana. I think 50% of that will be below I-10 and I-12. So the idea is to get these policies out of citizens as quickly as possible. And as we saw after Katrina, it will attract other companies to come in and start writing as well. And we anticipate that happening. So that's kind of the thing we can do right now, just to stop the bleeding, get companies in here writing policies, and get some competition in our market, which we do not have right now. We also, the question we get asked all the time is, we want to make sure that these companies don't fail. So we passed some laws last year, and we have some laws this year legislation that we're proposing that will do that. Obviously, we can't guarantee that a company will never fail, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure they don't. The biggest bill or I guess the biggest policy change that the Commissioner has done is enhance solvency monitoring of these insurers, including the incentive companies. I know the Commissioner has hired a third party to monitor those solvency levels, I believe on a monthly basis, and will be reporting to the legislature on a quarterly basis to watch their reinsurance levels, monitor their solvency levels like never before, and make sure that these companies are staying healthy. Senator Bowie last year passed a bill that increases the minimum amount of capital and surplus that companies have to have on hand to do business in Louisiana. I thought that was a very important bill. Another bill that's proposed that Senator Cameron Henry from Metairie has filed, and that is to prohibit former officers and directors of insurance companies that became insolvent from serving as an officer or director of another insurer doing business in Louisiana if the former officer or director served in that role within 2 years. This is a good common sense reform that will prohibit individuals with a poor record of business practices from doing further damage to the insurance industry. So I think that sends a good message that we know, look, the incentive program was very successful last time. We know we had, lessons learned. We see those lessons, and we're applying those to the incentive program moving further. And with that said, I will turn it over to Chairman Huvall. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Commissioner, for the invitation to be with you today. There's one thing that we cannot pass a law against in our state, is to keep hurricanes from coming to our state. They're coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. One of the best ways that we can prepare for hurricanes is to use stronger materials and construction methods when building or modifying our homes. Last year, I introduced a bill to establish the new Fortified Homes program within the Department of Insurance. Under this program, Louisiana residents can apply for grants to retrofit their roofs using methods that meet or exceed the Fortified Home standards of the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. While the homeowners will need to meet some eligibility requirements and pay for permits, inspections, and similar fees, the grants will cover the additional cost to retrofit homes to the fortified roof standard in most cases. I believe this program will help a lot of folks resist storm damage in the near future while potentially reducing residential property insurance costs for the entire state in the longer term. I hope it will also encourage more people to consider building to the fortified standard moving forward. The program was created last year, but we didn't fund it. That's the priority of this session. We plan on asking for $20 million in the budget to request for the program. The LDI has been working on the infrastructure needed to administer the grants, so we should see this program get underway rather quickly once we obtain funding, but we aren't stopping there. We are looking at other ways to encourage residents to obtain fortified roofs as well. In 2021, House Bill 451 passed into law, becoming Act 30. This bill authorized insurance companies to provide actuarially justified discounts or credits to policyholders who build or retrofit their residential or commercial structures to the fortified standard. This bill only authorized discounts and credits, so we are bringing a bill this session to mandate actuarially justified discounts and credits. This will ensure policyholders who are putting in the time, money, and effort to build or retrofit their structures to fortified standards are reaping all the benefits of that decision. We are further encouraging homeowners to build fortified through a bill authorized by Representative Gabe Furman that will require insurance companies to offer an endorsement to upgrade their policyholder roofs to the fortified roof standard of the IBHS if their home incurs a covered loss requiring the roof to be replaced. Insurance companies are permitted to charge an additional amount to the homeowner's premium if the policyholder chooses to add the endorsement to the policy. Thank you again, Commissioner Donald.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a few closing comments. I did want to address one other issue I've heard discussed recently, and that is an effort being brought by some in the insurance industry to amend or repeal, create a loophole that would render ineffective our best protection of our market in the state of Louisiana. And that is our unique 3-year rule, passed in 1992, which states generally and is applicable and in place in only one state, and that is Louisiana. And that is, if you've been with your homeowner's insurer for 3 or more years, you and they are, as I call it, married for as long as that company does homeowners business in our state. Truly, the companies have always hated it. I think what they hate the most about it is the possibility of it spreading nationwide. It's been talked about in other areas. In fact, I think West Virginia had passed it at one time and then repealed it at a later date. But what it has done for us is today, 60% of our homeowners insurance policies are written by 8 of the 9 largest national homeowners insurers in the U.S. 60% in our market are written by those 8 national companies. One company, Nationwide, won't do business with us as a result of our problems back in the 90s that are long behind us, but still a deterrent to that company's willingness to write business in Louisiana. But the other 8 are writing actively throughout our state to the tune of 60%. While in Florida, those same 8 national companies are only writing 25% of the homeowners business over there, where they have the option to write and come and go as they please. And I recognize that that is an infringement upon the private sector, but it is the most important statute on the books in Louisiana to protect the homeowners of our state from being subject to the whimsical writing and non-writing of coverage where we are so dependent below I-10, I-12. And it's not just benefiting those living in our industry below I-10, I-12, it benefits the entire state, because if you're not in the coastal area, there's no reason for those companies to feel compelled to write business or not write business in accordance with their absolute discretion. So I will be active in whatever efforts are made to water down or repeal the 3-year rule that I feel is so important, and wanted to add that before opening it to questions here today for any of us. Happy to field any questions we might have yet.
Mr. Donelan, what are your thoughts on the possible legislation to make your position selected instead of elected?
A good example of how as close a working relationship I have with these two chairmen, who I respect greatly, having held the job that led them to their present places. Chairman Huval has my old job in the House, and Chairman Talbot had my old job in the House before he took the reins over on the Senate side. I have a longstanding position of opposition to making it an appointed position, after having said at one point in time, early on, like Senator Kerry, I'm not proud to tell you as a member of the legislature, I voted against that bill before I voted for it, or vice versa. Don't remember which it was first. But my reasons are pretty simple. Number one, turnover. I am the second senior member of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. The dean, if you will, is from the state of Washington, also elected and not running for re-election, as I'm not running for re-election this year as well. Third in seniority, with 6 months less than my 17 years, is my neighbor next door, who invited me, and I leave here to go to Starkville for Mississippi State University's Insurance Day with a panel of half dozen of us commissioners from around the South coming, as we do on an annual basis, for that big event at Mississippi State. But that turnover, with the seniority that comes from the elected ranks versus those that are appointed, where the average tenure is 3 years on the job for those who get appointed, is really, really stark and distinct in the differentiating between the ability to regulate this very complex, very expensive, very vital part of our nation's economy at the state level. 3 years is no way to learn and to effectively become a regulator of that very important and very complicated part of our system. The other reason that I support the elected versus the appointed is the fact that when you run for office, whether you're running for president or you're running for insurance commissioner, the way to victory is to get to the center, where you can attract that swing vote, that 20%, if you will, that don't vote party line on the left or on the right. And if you're a Republican like myself, it behooves you to be able to demonstrate to that 20% that you are not a lockstep pro-business Republican, that you are, at your heart, a consumer protector as a regulator, and will be that as you serve. On the left, you have the opposite problem. You have to convince the voting public that you are a pro-business regulator on behalf of consumers as well. I feel like the best political outcome is gotten from the elected process, where you are motivated to get to that middle ground rather than at either extreme. So those are my reasons. I've seen it at the NAIC for the 17 years that I've been insurance commissioner, and for the 5 years before, when I was chief deputy and executive counsel and attending every NAIC meeting on the national level, to have firmly come to that position on that issue. Others? Yes, sir.
Commissioner, I noticed that the bill that you have discussed to remove some barriers, or rather put up some barriers to sue insurance companies modeled after the Florida legislation. You discussed that a couple times publicly in recent weeks, and I noticed you didn't mention it today. Can you talk about why that is not under consideration anymore, or if it is, why your office isn't supporting it at this point?
Well, we are supporting a tweaked version of that bill that I was approached by a lawyer in New Orleans that does insurance defense work. His name is Sid Deegan, and he represents Church Mutual, the largest insurer of churches, synagogues, temples, etc., nationwide, and the largest insurer of churches, synagogues, temples, etc., in our state as well. And they have expressed to me and to them grave concern about the legal status of our state and its so-called label of a judicial hellhole that they feel has impacted their ability to profitably make money in the property insurance market in our state. Met with Mr. Deegan and representatives of Church Mutual and came up with, or asked them to come up with a alternative to the Florida model, which was generating pushback and opposition in the legislature, that would be successful in fixing things that need to be reformed in our system, while at the same time not being an overreach to be impossible to pass in the legislative process. So we settled on that, and it was introduced by Representative Cormier of Plaquemine Parish, and we'll go from there. We have other parts of that in different pieces of legislation that are introduced as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. John?
We have a couple of online questions.
Sure.
First, on Fortify Homes, when is the start date? How can people apply? And is there income limit?
When is the start date, and how do people apply, and what was the third one?
Is there an income limit?
Income limit? No, there's not an income limit, and the start date I'm not sure of. We don't have funding yet. We have the legislation authorizing the program. We have the reg in place to set forth the rules and qualifications and requirements, but without funding, we can't set a start date as of yet. But we'll do that as soon as that funding is made available. And as Chairman Huval mentioned, it was his legislation last year to create that program, copied off of what has been incredibly successful in Alabama, with now 36,000 homes built to the Fortify standards and enjoying the benefits of a discount on their homeowners insurance, significant discount, I might add, similar to the discount we put in the law when we passed the first statewide building code in 2006 after Katrina and Rita, which on average generated about a 20% discount for homeowners built or retrofitted to the standards in that then new statewide building code. I might add, recently, January 1 of this year, updated to the latest standard for the international building code.
Has there been any vocal opposition to the Fortify bill or to the legal reforms announced today?
I couldn't get the last part. Fortify bill or what?
Or to the legal reforms announced today?
Second part first. No, but I haven't heard any opposition yet. I'm sure I will hear opposition. On my way to the office this morning, had a conversation with a lawyer who called me last week, and we were playing phone tag between now from then until this morning, and we had a lengthy conversation about what motivates me to do tort reform of the sort that I mentioned here at the press conference, and he expressed his concerns and opinion on some of those things in a general way, because he's not familiar with the specifics of those proposals, and we ended in I think a better place than we started with the conversation. Him understanding better my concerns, and me certainly understanding his, which I share as well. So we don't know what's in the what the public doesn't know yet, what's in the tort reform proposals we have. So the opposition has not been presented to me as of yet. As to Fortify, no, there is no opposition that I'm aware of. The issue last year when we recreated the incentive program and created the Fortify grant program was there was no funding available. We got funding from the special session when the state experienced a $1 billion surplus in this fiscal year, the ongoing fiscal year, and we're ready and willing to fund the incentive program, and I feel confident as Chairman Huval presents a budget proposal for the grant program. I think in terms of $20 million, Mike, and other legislators have expressed support for that level of funding as well. I think it will be approved and allow us to implement the grant program this year, this summer, without a means testing provision in it.
What changes are being proposed in regards to the appraisal process?
I think I had those outlined in here. I know it provides oversight of umpires and referees, not referees, umpires and, say again? I can find it. 1 second.
On page 5.
Oh, good. All right. Qualifications and duties for appraisers and umpires, not referees, it's appraisers and umpires, and prohibits one-sided communication between the umpire and any one party without giving the other party an opportunity to participate in other changes as well. The appraisal system is in statute, in Title 22, been there for over 100 years. It's a very useful tool to avoid litigation. It's user-friendly and can expedite disputes over the amount, but not over causation. It's only disputes in the amount, and it's only relative to residential policies, I do believe. Ron, is that correct, or do you know?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. I think it's only residential. It is, Adam is indicating it is only residential policies.
And last question, many families are falling behind in mortgage payments because of the increase in insurance. Discounts on premiums will help, but many are already at 120 days since rates started increasing and are now facing foreclosure. Is there any talk of emergency funding to help these families?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's a legislative issue that would have to be taken up in the upcoming session. I am very much aware of the threat to thousands of policyholders across particularly South Louisiana, who are forced to get their coverage from the market of last resort, Citizens. I spoke with Mr. Newberry this morning and was pleased to learn that some 6,500 policies have been taken out of Citizens. In fact, by one of the grant recipients, although those 6,500 will not qualify for credit against his required writing of new business, it has reduced the policy count at Citizens to its lowest level since the end of last year. And while the new business generated by what we were concerned would be an influx of policies resulting from UPC's failure, again in Florida, impacting 30,000 policyholders in our state, 31,000 next door in Texas, 17,000 in North Carolina. We are cautiously optimistic because while the new business policy count last week was running 500 policies a day, yesterday's new business policy count was only 23. So the belief is that that wave of new business going to Citizens from UPC is reaching its peak and will be addressed by the incentive companies that are set to start writing new business here next week. So it is a great concern, and I literally feel the pain of the thousands of folks who are dealing with trying to afford to keep coverage on their homes as required by their mortgage and not lose their homes. That is, generally speaking, the most significant investment and biggest asset in any family's portfolio. So, any others? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and participating. Oh, wait, we do have one.
We heard your reasoning why you were.
I'm sorry, can you?
We heard your reasoning why you're against appointing a commissioner.
Oh,
Could we please hear from Senator Talbot?
Oh.
The reasoning for the bill?
by the way, we're still good friends.
Right. Thank you. And look, this is a bill that I didn't file lightly. I mean, whenever you file a bill to take away an elected position from the voters, is something that takes a lot of thoughtfulness and real, soul searching. But the reasons why I wanted to do it are, one, to have someone who has the experience as a regulator for this job. And as the commissioner will tell you, he had 5 years, I believe 5 or 6 years experience as a regulator when he ascended to the commissioner. 39 other states have it appointed. My bill will have a expertise requirement. My bill will have removal protection. We want a commissioner, if they are appointed, to have the freedom to do the job and not worry about being fired every day if they have to make difficult decisions, because difficult decisions are coming. Like Chairman Huval said, we're going to have more hurricanes, we're going to have more issues, and I want that, if it is going to be appointed, I want that commissioner to have removal protection. So we have that in the bill. We also have a commission that will submit 3 names to the governor, and the governor will pick who that commissioner is, and then we'll also have Senate confirmation. But that's really the reason is to make sure we have someone that has regulatory experience, make sure they have removal protection, and make sure we have a transparent process and all the checks and balances, to do that. I don't want to do a commissioner that is just strictly appointed by the governor and can wake up one day and be fired for trying to make difficult decisions. So obviously I have the utmost respect for the commissioner. I certainly value his opinion, and the things that he stated while he's against them are very legitimate concerns. I mean, we certainly want to have continuity. But I filed the bill. I've already started having some discussions with other legislators, not in-depth discussions, but as this process goes on, we'll see where this bill takes us, and we'll see if there's an appetite to do this. It does take 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate. It does not go on the ballot for approval by the voters, so it's something that would be done now and that we would have moving forward. So that being said, we'll see where the discussion leads us. I'm certainly keeping an open mind and open to any suggestions to make the bill better. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kirk. It truly has been a pleasure to work with these 2 gentlemen on these very, very contentious issues for the past 4 years. They have made my job a whole lot easier, and I can guarantee you they have made the lives of Louisiana citizens much better for their contributions to this vital part of our state's economy and its recovery from Laura, Delta, Zeta, and Ida in a 13-month period of time. So, with all that said, thank you for being here, and we'll see you again. Take care.